The Crosswalk Collision. Lucas Vale built an empire on control, until the moment he lost the only thing that mattered. Standing at a city crosswalk, the most dangerous man in the underworld freezes when he sees her. Mara Hale, his ex-wife, walking alone with one hand protectively curved over her swollen belly. The divorce papers said it was over. Her eyes say otherwise. The child she's carrying is his. He knows it in his bones. But she won't stop, won't look back. And someone in the shadows is already watching her every move. If you want to see how far love can survive when danger never sleeps, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain came down in sheets that Tuesday afternoon, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected neon and brake lights. Lucas Vale stood beneath the awning of a coffee shop he'd never entered, collar turned up against the cold, waiting for a contact who was running late. He didn't mind. Patience was a weapon he'd mastered long ago. Then he saw her. Mara Hale? No, not Hale anymore, just Mara, because she'd taken back her maiden name the day the divorce was finalized, stepped off the curb at the crosswalk half a block away. She wore a long charcoal coat that hung open despite the weather, and beneath it, unmistakable even from this distance, was the curve of her belly. Lucas's breath stopped. 6 months. It had been 6 months since he'd signed those papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like leather and regret. 6 months since she'd walked out of the conference room without looking back, her spine straight, her hands steady, her voice cold when she said, "I hope you find what you're looking for, Lucas. I know it was never me." He hadn't corrected her. How could he? She was right and wrong in equal measure, and the truth was too complicated to fit into the 15 minutes they had left before the lawyers started charging by the quarter hour. Now she was pregnant. His feet moved before his brain caught up. He crossed the street against the light, ignoring the honk of a taxi, his eyes locked on her retreating form. She walked quickly despite the added weight, head down, one hand resting protectively on her belly, in a gesture so instinctive it made his chest tighten. Mara. She stopped, didn't turn. Her shoulders rose and fell with a single deep breath before she slowly pivoted to face him. Up close, she was thinner than he remembered everywhere except her stomach. Her cheekbones stood out sharper, her wrists delicate where they emerged from her coat sleeves. But her eyes, those storm-gray eyes that had once looked at him like he hung the moon, were harder now, guarded. "Lucas?" Her voice was neutral, practiced. "This is unexpected. Is it mine?" The question came out more abrupt than he'd intended, but he'd never been good at small talk, especially not with her. Especially not now, with his heart hammering against his ribs like it wanted to break free. Something flickered across her face. Anger, maybe, or pain, before her expression smoothed back into careful blankness. "That's a hell of a greeting. Answer the question." "I don't owe you anything, Lucas. We made that official 6 months ago." Mara, "Don't." She held up one hand, palm out. "Don't do this. Don't stand there and act like you have a right to know anything about my life. You gave up that right when you couldn't give up everything else." The words hit like bullets, precise and devastating. Lucas flinched but didn't back down. "I never stopped." "Loving me?" Mara's laugh was bitter. "No, you probably didn't, but you never stopped loving your empire more. And I couldn't keep coming in second to a world that was going to kill one of us eventually. This is different." "Is it?" She shifted her weight, and he saw the fatigue in her posture, the way her hand unconsciously supported her lower back. "Because from where I'm standing, nothing's changed. You're still Lucas Vale. I'm still the woman who walked away, and this," she gestured to her belly, "is none of your business." "The hell it's not." Her eyes flashed. "I didn't come looking for you, Lucas. I didn't ask for your help. I didn't send you a birth announcement or a plea for child support. I built a life without you, and it's working just fine." "Someone's watching you." The words dropped between them like stones into still water. Mara's face went pale. "What?" Lucas took a step closer, lowering his voice, even though the street was crowded with rush-hour pedestrians who wouldn't have cared about their conversation anyway. "I've had eyes around the city for years, you know that. 3 weeks ago, one of my people reported seeing someone tailing a woman matching your description. I didn't believe it until now." "You're paranoid." "I'm careful. There's a difference." He pulled out his phone, swiped to a photo, and held it up. This was taken 4 days ago outside a medical building on Fifth Avenue. That's you going in for an appointment. And that, he zoomed in on a figure half hidden behind a parked car, is someone who's been following you for at least a month. Mara stared at the screen, her face draining of what little color remained. I don't... Who would... That's what I need to find out, but I can't do it if you won't let me help. She jerked back like he'd slapped her. Help? Lucas, your kind of help comes with strings attached. It comes with obligations and expectations in a world I can't survive in. I won't do that to my child. Our child. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Mara's jaw tightened. No, she said quietly. My child. I didn't tell you because I knew this would happen. I knew you'd swoop in and try to fix everything with money or muscle or whatever currency you deal in these days. But I don't want that life. I never did. Then what do you want? I want you to leave me alone. She turned and walked away, her steps quick, despite her obvious discomfort. Lucas watched her go, every instinct screaming at him to follow, to argue, to demand answers. But he stayed rooted to the spot, hands clenched in his pockets, jaw tight with frustration. Because the truth was, she was right. His world was dangerous, his enemies were ruthless, and the last thing he wanted was to pull her back into a life she'd risked everything to escape. But the baby changed everything, their baby. And whoever was watching Mara didn't care about divorce papers or good intentions. They saw an opportunity, a weakness, a way to hurt Lucas Vale where it would matter most. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in months. Dominic, I need you to put a team on someone. Discreet. I don't want her to know she's being watched. Who's the target? Dominic's voice was gravelly, professional. Mara Hale, my ex-wife. There was a pause. This official business or personal? Does it matter? Always matters, boss. Personal means you're emotionally compromised. That's when people make mistakes. Lucas watched Mara disappear around the corner, her charcoal coat blending into the gray afternoon. Consider it both. I need to know who's tailing her and why. And I need to know yesterday. You got it? Anything else? Find out where she's living, what name she's using, who she's seen, everything. Lucas, just do it, Dom. He ended the call before his second-in-command could argue further. Then he stood there in the rain, feeling the cold seep through his coat, and let himself acknowledge the truth he'd been avoiding for 6 months. He'd let Mara go because he thought it would keep her safe, because loving her from a distance seemed kinder than dragging her deeper into his world. Because the divorce had been her idea, and he'd loved her enough to give her that freedom even when it destroyed him. But someone else had noticed her absence from his life. Someone smart enough to stay hidden. Someone patient enough to wait for the perfect moment. And now she was carrying his child. Lucas turned and headed back toward his car, his mind already working through scenarios, contingencies, threats. The meeting he'd been waiting for didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except making sure Mara and the baby stayed safe. Even if she hated him for it, even if she never forgave him, even if it cost him everything. 3 days later, Mara Hale lived in a third-floor walk-up in a neighborhood that straddled the line between gentrifying and forgotten. The building was old brick, the kind with water-stained facades and windows that didn't quite close all the way. Lucas sat in an unmarked sedan across the street, watching the lit window of her apartment through the gathering dusk. Dominic had delivered the report that morning. Mara worked part-time as a medical transcriptionist from home. She used her maiden name. She had no social media presence. She saw a midwife every 2 weeks and attended a prenatal yoga class on Wednesdays. She was alone. Completely, utterly alone. The knowledge sat like acid in Lucas's stomach. When they'd been together, Mara had been surrounded by people, her sister, her friends, the charmed circle of normalcy that Lucas had envied and protected in equal measure. Now she'd isolated herself so thoroughly that even her emergency contact at the medical clinic was listed as none. Because of him. Because being connected to Lucas Vale meant being a target. His phone buzzed. A text from Dominic. Got an ID on your tail. Sending file now. Lucas opened the encrypted attachment. The photo showed a woman in her late 30s, professionally dressed, with sharp features and calculating eyes. The name beneath made his blood run cold. Sienna Cross, former associate of Marcus Hendry. Marcus Hendry. The man Lucas had destroyed 2 years ago to consolidate power in the Eastern Corridor. The operation had been clean, efficient, leaving no room for retaliation. Or so he'd thought. Another text arrived. Cross dropped off grid after Hendry went down. Resurfaced 6 months ago, same time as your divorce went public. 6 months. She'd been planning this for 6 months, waiting and watching, looking for the perfect leverage point, and now she'd found it. Lucas's jaw tightened. He typed back, "Find her. I want locations, associates, financials, everything. Already on it. But boss, if she's been tailing Mara this long, she knows about the baby." "I know. So what's the play?" Lucas stared up at Mara's window. Through the sheer curtains, he could see her moving around the small kitchen, probably making dinner. The domesticity of it, the ordinariness, made his chest ache. "We handle this quietly. No spectacle. No violence unless absolutely necessary. I want Cross neutralized without Mara ever knowing she was in danger. That's going to be tricky. I don't pay you to tell me what's tricky. I pay you to make problems disappear. Understood. Give me 48 hours. Lucas pocketed his phone and continued watching Mara's window. He knew he should leave, should trust his people to handle this, should respect her wishes and stay away. But the thought of her up there alone, vulnerable, carrying his child while danger circled closer, it was unbearable. His phone rang. Unknown number. Lucas answered but said nothing. "Mr. Vale." The voice was female, smooth, educated. "I was wondering when you'd figure it out." "Sienna Cross." "Good. That saves us the awkward introduction phase. I assume you're currently parked outside your ex-wife's apartment, playing the protective hero?" Lucas's free hand curled into a fist. "What do you want?" "The same thing Marcus wanted. Recognition, compensation, an acknowledgement that you don't get to destroy people's lives without consequences." "Marcus made his choices. So did you." "True. And now I'm making another choice. I'm giving you 72 hours to transfer $5 million to an account I'll specify. If you comply, I disappear, and your lovely Mara never knows I existed. And if I don't, then I send her the file I've compiled. Every ugly detail of your empire. Every body. Every bribe. Every broken law. I'll make sure she understands exactly what kind of man fathered her child. And then I'll make sure the authorities get the same file, along with evidence that you've been stalking and harassing her since the divorce." Lucas's voice dropped to a whisper. "You won't touch her." "I won't have to. The truth will do all the damage I need. 72 hours, Mr. Vale. I'll be in touch." The line went dead. Lucas sat in the silence of the car, rage and fear warring in his chest. Sienna Cross had played this perfectly. She'd found the one threat he couldn't counter with force, the one weapon that would actually hurt him. Not his money or his power or his life. Mara's opinion of him. He could pay the $5 million. Hell, he could pay $50 million and barely notice the dent. But paying didn't solve the problem. It just delayed it, invited more demands, more threats, an endless cycle of vulnerability. No, this ended now, on his terms. Lucas started the car and pulled away from the curb. He had 48 hours to find Sienna Cross and eliminate her as a threat. 48 hours to protect Mara without her ever knowing she'd been in danger. 48 hours to prove that maybe, just maybe, he could be the man she'd needed him to be all along, even if she never knew it. The next morning, Mara stood in the checkout line at the grocery store, one hand on her shopping cart, the other rubbing the persistent ache in her lower back. The baby had been active all night, rolling and kicking, making sleep impossible. Now exhaustion dragged at her like weights. "That'll be $43.75, the cashier said. Mara swiped her card and waited, mentally calculating how many more weeks she could work before the pregnancy made even transcription too difficult. Money was tight. It had always been tight, even when she'd been married to one of the wealthiest men in the city, because she'd never touched Lucas's money. Not during the marriage, and certainly not after. She'd walked away clean, with nothing but her clothes and her dignity and the determination to build a life that was entirely hers, even if that life was lonely. even if some nights she woke up reaching for him before remembering he wasn't there. "Ma'am, your card was declined." Mara blinked. "What? That's impossible. Can you try again?" The cashier swiped it a second time, then shook her head apologetically. "Still declined. Do you have another form of payment?" Heat flooded Mara's cheeks as the people behind her in line shifted impatiently. She fumbled for her wallet, knowing the cash inside wouldn't be enough. Can you remove a few items? Just the... I've got it." The voice came from behind her, deep and familiar. Mara's heart stopped. She turned slowly, and there he was. Lucas Vale, looking impossibly handsome in a dark coat and crisp white shirt, holding out a black credit card to the cashier like it was nothing, like he hadn't just appeared out of nowhere to rescue her from public humiliation. "Lucas, no. It's $43.75. He handed the card to the cashier without looking at Mara. "And add whatever the next 3 people in line are buying. Call it community goodwill." The cashier's eyes went wide, but she processed the transaction quickly. Lucas took his card back, picked up Mara's grocery bags, and started toward the exit. Mara grabbed her purse and followed, anger building with every step. By the time they reached the parking lot, she was shaking. What the hell was that? Lucas set the bags in the trunk of a car she didn't recognize, something sleek and expensive and entirely impractical for winter weather. "You needed help." "I helped." "I didn't ask for your help?" "No, you just stood there while your card got declined and strangers judged you." "Much better plan." "That's my business, Lucas. Mine. You don't get to swoop in and play hero just because—" She stopped, breathing hard, fighting the tears that threatened to spill over. Lucas turned to face her fully, and the expression on his face made her breath catch. Not anger, not arrogance, just weariness. And something that might have been pain. "I know you don't want me in your life," he said quietly. "I know you have every right to shut me out. But I can't walk past you in a grocery store and pretend I don't see you struggling. I can't do it, Mara. So hate me if you want, but let me help." "I don't need—" "Yes, you do." His voice was gentle but firm. "You're pregnant and alone and clearly having money trouble. And before you tell me it's none of my business, answer one question honestly. Is the baby mine?" Mara's throat closed. She wanted to lie, wanted to protect herself and the child from the complications his involvement would bring. But she'd never been good at lying. Not to him. "Yes," she whispered. "It's yours." Lucas closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, they were bright with something fierce and protective. "Then it's my business, whether you like it or not." "Lucas, I'm not asking to move back in. I'm not demanding rights or making threats. I'm just asking you to let me make sure you and the baby are safe and provided for. That's it. No strings." "There are always strings with you." "Not this time." He pulled an envelope from his coat and held it out. "This is a debit card linked to an account in your name. There's $50,000 in it right now, and it'll auto-refill whenever the balance drops below $10,000. Use it for whatever you need. Rent, medical bills, groceries, baby supplies. It's not a loan. It's not conditional. It's just what I should have done 6 months ago." Mara stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" "Because it ties me to you, to your world, and I left that world for a reason. Taking money doesn't tie you to anything except financial stability, which, forgive me for saying it, you clearly need right now." The truth of it stung. Mara looked down at her belly, at the physical evidence of how completely her life had changed. She'd been managing, barely, by working long hours and cutting every possible corner. But the 3rd trimester was approaching fast, and soon she wouldn't be able to work at all. "If I take this," she said slowly, "it doesn't mean we're getting back together. It doesn't mean you get to control my life or make decisions about the baby." "Understood. And you don't get to just show up whenever you feel like it. If you want to be involved, we do this properly. With boundaries. Name them." Mara met his eyes, searching for the trap, the angle, the hidden cost. But all she saw was sincerity, and beneath it, carefully controlled fear. He was scared. Lucas Vale, the most dangerous man she'd ever known, was scared of losing her again. "One dinner," she heard herself say. "Neutral location. We talk about what this looks like going forward. And if I don't like what I hear, you walk away and we figure out co-parenting through lawyers." Done. Lucas pulled out his phone. When? Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. There's a diner on Maple Street. I know it. Of course he did. Lucas knew every inch of the city. I'll be there. He handed her the envelope, and this time she took it. Their fingers brushed, and the contact sent electricity up her arm, same as it always had. Some things apparently divorce papers couldn't erase. Thank you, she said quietly. Lucas nodded, then opened her car door for her with old-fashioned courtesy that made her heart twist. As she slid behind the wheel, he leaned down to the window. Mara, one more thing. What? If anyone approaches you, anyone you don't know, anyone who asks questions about me or us or the baby, you call me immediately. Don't engage, don't try to handle it yourself. Just call. The intensity in his voice sent chills down her spine. Lucas, you're scaring me. Is there something I should know? No. The lie came too quickly, too smoothly. I'm just being cautious, old habits. He stepped back before she could press further, and Mara drove away with her groceries and her questions and the envelope burning a hole in her purse. In the rearview mirror, she watched Lucas stand in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, watching her go. And she wondered, not for the first time, if leaving him had been the right choice, or the biggest mistake of her life. The diner on Maple Street had been their place once, back when Lucas was building his empire and Mara was finishing her nursing degree. Before the money got complicated, before the danger became impossible to ignore, before everything fell apart. Lucas arrived 15 minutes early and took the corner booth with sightlines to both entrances. Old habits. Dominic had assured him that Sienna Cross was being tracked, that the threat was contained, but Lucas trusted nothing when it came to Mara's safety. 2 of his best people were stationed outside, invisible to casual observation but close enough to respond if needed. Mara walked in at 7 sharp, her charcoal coat replaced by a navy pea coat that didn't quite button over her belly. She'd pulled her dark hair back in a simple ponytail, and without makeup she looked younger, more like the woman he'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. She slid into the booth across from him, unwinding a scarf from her neck. You're early. So are you. I didn't want to give you time to orchestrate anything. Lucas smiled despite himself. Fair enough. Coffee, decaf, and water. She glanced at the menu, even though they both knew she'd order the same thing she always did, grilled cheese and tomato soup. So, ground rules. I'm listening. Mara folded her hands on the table, and Lucas noticed she'd stopped wearing her wedding ring months before the divorce was final. The pale line where it had been was barely visible now, fading like the marriage itself. First, she said, I need to understand what's changed. 6 months ago, you signed those papers without a fight. You let me walk away. Now you're tracking my movements and paying my bills. What happened? You're pregnant. I was pregnant when I left. I knew 2 weeks before I filed the papers. The words hit like a physical blow. Lucas's composure cracked for just a moment, shock and hurt flashing across his face before he locked it down. You knew? Yes. And you didn't tell me? No. Mara's voice was steady, but her eyes held a mixture of defiance and old pain. Because I knew exactly what would happen. You'd have convinced yourself you could protect us. You'd have doubled your security, eliminated your enemies, built an impenetrable fortress. And sooner or later, someone would have gotten through anyway. That's how your world works, Lucas. There's always another threat. So you were just going to raise my child alone? Never tell me? I was going to raise my child safely, away from the violence and the fear and the constant looking over my shoulder. She leaned forward. Do you know what it was like being married to you? Every time you left the house, I wondered if you'd come back. Every strange car on our street was a potential threat. Every phone call after midnight made my heart stop. I couldn't live like that anymore, and I sure as hell wasn't going to raise a baby in that environment. Lucas was quiet for a long moment, processing the depth of her fear, the weight of isolation she must have carried. I never knew you felt that way. Because I didn't tell you. Because you were so convinced you had everything under control, and I didn't want to be the weak link that made you vulnerable. Mara's voice softened slightly. I loved you, Lucas. It doesn't matter. The point is, love isn't enough when the cost is too high. The waitress appeared and they ordered without speaking, grilled cheese and soup for Mara, black coffee for Lucas. When they were alone again, Lucas reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "What if I could change that?" he asked quietly. "What if I could make it safe?" "You can't. That's the whole point. Your world doesn't allow for safety." "My world is changing." Lucas pulled back, his expression serious. "I've been restructuring for the past 3 months, divesting from the dangerous operations, transitioning to legitimate business. It's not complete yet, but it's happening." Mara's eyes widened. "You're going legitimate?" "As legitimate as someone with my history can get. Real estate development, private security consulting, investment portfolios, clean money, clean operations." "Why?" "Because you were right." The admission cost him. She could see it in the tension around his eyes. "I built an empire on control and fear, and it cost me the only thing I actually cared about, so I'm changing the empire." "Lucas, people don't just walk away from that life. Your enemies are being handled, quietly, permanently, but legally." He held her gaze. "I know you don't believe me. I know I have to prove it, but I'm asking for the chance." Mara sat back, one hand unconsciously moving to her belly where the baby was doing somersaults. "And what about whoever's watching me? Don't lie, Lucas. I saw your face in the parking lot when you warned me. Something's going on." Lucas's jaw tightened. He'd hoped to keep this from her, to handle Sienna Cross without adding to Mara's stress, but she deserved the truth. "There's a woman named Sienna Cross," he said carefully. "She worked for someone I had business with 2 years ago. That business ended badly for him. She's been watching you for about a month, trying to find leverage against me." The color drained from Mara's face. "Leverage? You mean me? The baby?" "I'm handling it." "How?" Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. She lowered it to a fierce whisper. "How are you handling it, Lucas? The way you handled things before? Because that's exactly what I was trying to escape." "No." Lucas leaned forward, his voice urgent. "I'm doing this differently. No violence. No spectacle. I'm dismantling her support system, freezing her assets, cutting off every avenue she has for causing harm. In 48 hours, Sienna Cross won't be a threat to anyone. And you expect me to just trust that? To believe you've suddenly developed restraint? I expect you to let me prove it." Lucas pulled out his phone and set it on the table between them. "I'm giving you access to my security team's reports. Real-time updates on the Cross situation. Complete transparency. You'll know everything I know when I know it." Mara stared at the phone like it was a snake. "Why?" "Because you asked for boundaries and honesty, and I'm giving them to you. Because I can't change the past, but I can control how I handle the present." He paused. "Because I want to be the father our child deserves, and that starts with being the man you needed me to be." The waitress returned with their food, and they sat in silence while she arranged plates and refilled water glasses. When she left, Mara picked up her spoon but didn't eat, just stirred the soup in slow circles. "If I let you back in," she said finally, "it's not all or nothing. We're not getting remarried. We're not playing happy family. We're two people trying to figure out how to co-parent a child while keeping that child safe." "Understood." And the very first time, I feel like we're slipping back into old patterns. I'm done. No second chances, no explanations. I walk, and you let me. "Agreed. I mean it, Lucas. I won't sacrifice my safety or our child's well-being for—" "I know." Lucas reached across the table again, and this time Mara didn't pull away when his fingers brushed hers. The contact was brief, electric, painful in its familiarity. "I know what I'm asking you to risk, and I know I don't deserve another chance, but I'm asking anyway." Mara was quiet for so long that Lucas thought she'd refuse. Then she picked up her grilled cheese, took a bite, and said around the food, "One step at a time. You want to be involved? Fine. We start with doctor's appointments. You can come to the next one. See if you can handle the reality of this before we talk about anything bigger." Relief flooded through Lucas's chest. "When?" "Friday, 2 o'clock. Dr. Martinez's office on 7th Avenue. She pointed her sandwich at him. "And Lucas? Don't be late. She's got a tight schedule and 0 patience for drama. I'll be there an hour early. Make it 15 minutes. An hour looks obsessive." The corner of Lucas's mouth quirked up. You used to like my obsessive tendencies. I used to like a lot of things that turned out to be bad for me. But there was no heat in the words, just resignation and a hint of something that might have been humor. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, the tension easing into something almost comfortable. Lucas watched Mara work her way through the grilled cheese, noting how she ate with the single-minded focus of someone who'd been too tired to cook properly for days. The protective instinct that surged through him was so strong, it was almost painful. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Physically, I mean. The pregnancy, is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. The baby's healthy, measurements are good, no complications." Mara hesitated, then added, "It's a girl." Lucas's world tilted. A daughter. He was going to have a daughter. "A girl," he repeated, his voice rough with emotion he couldn't quite control. "I found out last week. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but—" Mara shrugged. "It seemed wrong to keep that from you, even if everything else is complicated." "Thank you." Lucas had to clear his throat twice before he could continue. "For telling me. For giving me this chance. I know you don't owe me anything." "No, I don't, but she deserves to know her father, assuming her father can keep both of us alive long enough for that to matter." The bluntness of it should have stung, but Lucas appreciated her honesty. "I will. Keep you alive. Keep you safe. Whatever it takes. Just don't lose yourself in the process. That's what happened before. You got so focused on protecting me that you forgot I needed a partner, not a bodyguard." "I'll remember." Mara finished her soup and pushed the bowl away, exhaustion settling over her features like a veil. "I should go. I've got work tomorrow, and the baby's been keeping me up at night." "I'll walk you to your car." "Lucas, it's dark, you're pregnant, and there's at least one person out there who's been watching you. Let me walk you to your car." She wanted to argue, he could see it in her eyes, but practicality won out. "Fine, but just to the car. No following me home, no surprise security details, no helicopters." There was one time was enough. Mara slid out of the booth, accepting Lucas's hand to steady herself as she stood. Her coat was still unbuttoned, and up close Lucas could see the full extent of her pregnancy, the way her body had changed to accommodate their daughter. Their daughter. The thought still made his chest tight. They walked out into the cold February night, their breath-forming clouds in the air. Mara's car was parked under a streetlight 2 blocks away, a sensible sedan that had seen better years. Lucas made a mental note to have it serviced, then caught himself. That was exactly the kind of overstepping she'd warned him against. "I can hear you thinking," Mara said as they walked. "Whatever it is, stop. Your car needs new tires." "My car is fine." Mara, you're driving in winter weather with tires that have maybe 30% tread left. Let me—" "No." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "This is what I'm talking about. You can't just swoop in and fix everything. Some things I need to handle myself." "Even if it puts you at risk?" "Especially then, because that's how I maintain my independence. That's how I remember I'm capable of taking care of myself and my daughter." Lucas forced himself to nod, even though every instinct screamed at him to solve this problem, to throw money at it until it went away. "Okay, but if you change your mind, I know where to find you." Mara unlocked her car and opened the door, then paused. "Lucas? Friday. Don't make me regret this." "I won't." She drove away, and Lucas stood in the cold watching her taillights disappear, his phone already vibrating with an update from Dominic. He pulled it out, reading the text that made his blood run cold. Cross made contact with a journalist. "Trying to sell a story about you. We're working on shutting it down, but she's got recordings. Conversations between you and Marcus Hendry. Some of them are bad." Lucas dialed immediately. Dominic answered on the first ring. "How bad?" "Bad enough to tank any legitimate business deals you've got in progress. Bad enough to get law enforcement interested. Bad enough to make Mara question everything you just told her about going clean. Where's Cross now?" "Safe house in Queens. We've got eyes on it, but she knows we're watching. She's holed up tight, and the journalist she contacted is legit. Won't scare easy." Lucas paced the empty street, his mind racing through options and discarding them just as quickly. Violence would only prove Mara right about his world. Bribes would look desperate. Legal action would take too long and draw too much attention. What about the recordings themselves? Can we discredit them? They're clean, professionally done. She must have been recording Marcus for months before you took him down, then held on to them waiting for the right moment. So we need her to voluntarily destroy them. Or we need to make sure no one believes them, even if she releases them. Dominic paused. There's a third option. I'm listening. We let her release them. Control the narrative, get ahead of the story. You've been transitioning to legitimate business anyway. Frame it as a redemption arc. Former criminal turns his life around, that kind of thing. Lucas stopped pacing. That's a gamble. So is everything else. But at least this way you control the timing, and it's honest, which might actually matter to your ex-wife. Might matter. Would matter. Lucas knew Mara well enough to know that honesty, real, complete honesty, was the only currency she'd accept. Set up a meeting with Cross, Lucas said. I want to talk to her face to face. Boss, that's tomorrow. Neutral location, just me and her. No weapons, no threats, no muscle. I'm going to make her an offer she can't refuse. That's literally a threat. It's a negotiation. There's a difference. Lucas ended the call before Dominic could argue further. The cold was seeping through his coat, but he stood there a moment longer, looking up at the winter sky. Stars were invisible through the city's light pollution, but he knew they were there, constant, unchanging, unlike everything else in his life. He thought about Mara's face when she'd told him about their daughter, the mix of defiance and vulnerability, the way she'd shared something precious even when she had every reason to keep it to herself. He thought about the choice ahead of him, the safe path of eliminating Sienna Cross through force, or the harder path of dismantling her power without becoming the man Mara had left. The decision wasn't difficult. It was terrifying and uncertain, and completely unlike every instinct he'd honed over 15 years of surviving in a world that rewarded ruthlessness. But for the first time in his life, Lucas Vale chose restraint over power. He chose the hard way. For Mara. For their daughter. For the chance at something better than the empire he'd built on fear. The meeting with Sienna Cross was scheduled for noon the next day at a coffee shop in Midtown. Lucas arrived alone, as promised, and found her already seated by the window. She was smaller than he'd expected from her photos, with sharp features and eyes that calculated every angle. Mr. Vale? She didn't stand or offer her hand. This is unexpected. You wanted my attention. You have it. Lucas sat across from her, deliberately casual. Let's talk. I believe I was clear about my terms. $5 million, or I release everything I have on you. And I'm offering you something better, a way out that doesn't end with you dead or in prison. Sienna's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? It's a statement of fact. You go after me publicly, and you become a target for every enemy I've ever made. And I've made a lot of enemies, Sienna. People who'd love to hurt me through you. People who are significantly less civilized than I am. So you're saying you can't protect me? I'm saying I won't. Why would I? You're actively trying to destroy me. She sat back, studying him. Then what are you proposing? Lucas pulled a folder from his coat and slid it across the table. That's a contract for a consulting position at one of my security firms. 5-year term, guaranteed annual salary of $200,000, full benefits. In exchange, you destroy the recordings and sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement. Sienna didn't touch the folder. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a future. You worked for Marcus Hendry, which means you're smart and resourceful. Those are valuable traits. I'd rather have you working for me than against me. And if I refuse? Then you release your story, and I release mine. Every illegal thing Marcus ever did, every person he hurt, every dollar he stole, and I make it very clear that you were his partner in all of it. Lucas leaned forward. You'll get your moment of revenge, Sienna, and then you'll spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering when Marcus's other enemies will find you. The silence stretched between them, taut with tension. Finally, Sienna opened the folder and scanned the contract. This is legitimate, she said, surprise coloring her voice. You're actually offering me a real job. I told you. I'm transitioning to legitimate business. That means I need people who understand how the other side operates. People who can anticipate threats because they've been threats themselves. You're serious about going clean. As serious as I've ever been about anything. Lucas held her gaze. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to make a smart business decision. 200,000 a year or a target on your back? Your choice. Sienna stared at the contract for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she pulled a phone from her purse, tapped through several screens, and held it up so Lucas could see. These are the recordings. All of them. She deleted the files one by one, methodically, until the folder was empty. Then she powered down the phone and set it on the table. I accept your offer, Mr. Vale. Relief flooded through Lucas, though he kept his expression neutral. Smart choice. Report to Dominic Chen on Monday. He'll get you set up. One question. What? Why didn't you just kill me? You could have. Probably should have, from a tactical standpoint. Lucas stood, buttoning his coat. Because someone I care about very much believes I can be better than I was, and I'm trying very hard not to prove her wrong. He left Sienna sitting at the table, her expression thoughtful, the phone and contract between them. Outside, Dominic was waiting by the car. She accept? Dominic asked. She accepted. You know she could still be a problem down the line. Everyone's a problem down the line. At least this way, she's our problem instead of theirs. Lucas climbed into the car. Any activity around Mara? All quiet. Your ex-wife went to prenatal yoga, then home. Normal pattern. Good. Keep eyes on her until Friday. After the doctor's appointment, we'll reassess. Thus, Dominic pulled into traffic, navigating the midday congestion with practiced ease. Can I ask you something, boss? When has that ever stopped you? This change you're making, going legitimate, hiring people instead of eliminating them, asking permission instead of taking control, is it sustainable? Can you really walk away from 15 years of operating one way and just be different? Lucas watched the city scroll past, thinking about Mara's face across the diner table, about the daughter he'd never met but already loved more than his own life. I don't know, he said honestly, but I'm going to find out. Friday afternoon arrived wrapped in gray clouds and the threat of snow. Lucas stood outside Dr. Martinez's office at exactly 1:45, 15 minutes early as Mara had requested. He'd changed clothes 3 times that morning, finally settling on dark jeans and a sweater, attempting casual and failing probably, but at least he'd tried. Mara arrived at 1:55, her expression guarded but not hostile. You came. I said I would. People say a lot of things. She pulled open the door to the medical building. Come on, we can't be late. The waiting room was painted in soothing blues and greens, with magazines about parenting scattered across low tables. Lucas felt completely out of place among the pregnant women and their partners, but Mara checked in at the desk with practiced ease, then led him to a pair of chairs in the corner. They'll call us in about 10 minutes, she said, settling into the chair with a soft sigh. Fair warning, this is a regular checkup, so it's pretty routine. They'll measure the baby, check my blood pressure, ask a bunch of questions. I appreciate you letting me be here. Don't make it weird, Lucas. It's just a doctor's appointment. But it wasn't, and they both knew it. This was trust, tentative and fragile, but real. A nurse called Mara's name, and they followed her back to an examination room. The nurse went through the standard checks, blood pressure, weight, measuring Mara's belly with a tape measure. Then she pulled out a Doppler and squeezed gel onto Mara's exposed stomach. Let's hear how baby's doing, the nurse said cheerfully. The sound that filled the room was fast and strong, a rhythmic whooshing that Lucas had never heard before but recognized instantly. His daughter's heartbeat. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching. He'd stared down armed enemies without blinking. But hearing that heartbeat, the proof that his daughter was real, was alive, was growing, broke something open in his chest. Strong and steady, the nurse said, noting the rate. Perfect. Dr. Martinez will be in shortly. She left them alone, and Mara wiped the gel from her stomach, pulling her shirt down. You okay? You look pale. That was her, Lucas said, his voice rough. Our daughter. Yeah. Mara's expression softened slightly. That's her. She's real. Very real and very active, especially at 3 a.m. Mara shifted on the examination table. Lucas, there's something I need to tell you. The seriousness in her tone made his stomach drop. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong with the baby. but I've been thinking about what you said, about going legitimate, about changing your world. And I did some research. Research? I'm not stupid, Lucas. I know you've been restructuring your businesses. I know you've made some major moves in the past 3 months, but I also know that kind of change doesn't happen in a vacuum. There are always consequences. Lucas's jaw tightened. What did you find? I found articles about a journalist who was working on an expose about organized crime in the Eastern Corridor. She dropped the story suddenly last week. No explanation. Mara met his eyes. I found that interesting timing, given our conversation at the diner. So she knew, or suspected. Either way, she deserved the truth. Her name was Sienna Cross, Lucas said quietly. She had recordings that could have destroyed everything I'm trying to build. So I made her an offer, a job instead of a war. She accepted. You hired her? I neutralized her. Without violence, without threats, without proving you right about my world. Lucas leaned forward. I did it the way you would have wanted, Mara. The hard way. Mara was quiet for a long moment. Show me. What? Your phone. Show me the reports you said I could access. Prove it. Lucas pulled out his phone and handed it over without hesitation. Mara scrolled through the security updates, her expression unreadable. Finally, she handed it back. You really did it, she said softly. You handled a threat without becoming a threat yourself. I'm trying. I can see that. Mara's hand moved to her belly, her expression thoughtful. Okay. Okay? Okay, you can come to the next appointment too, and maybe we can start thinking about bigger conversations, about what it looks like when the baby comes, about how we do this together. The hope that surged through Lucas's chest was almost painful. Together? Co-parenting together. Don't get ahead of yourself. But there was warmth in her voice that hadn't been there before. Possibility. Dr. Martinez arrived then, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with kind eyes and efficient hands. She went through the examination quickly, pronouncing everything perfect, and scheduled the next appointment for 2 weeks out. Bring him again, she told Mara, nodding toward Lucas. First-time fathers should see as much of this as possible. Makes the reality sink in. Outside the medical building, standing in the gray afternoon light with snow just beginning to fall, Lucas and Mara faced each other with new understanding between them. Thank you, Lucas said. For this. For the chance. Don't waste it. Mara pulled her coat tighter against the cold. And Lucas? I mean it about the boundaries, one step at a time. One step at a time, he agreed. She walked away toward her car, and Lucas let her go without following, without offering help, without overstepping. It was one of the hardest things he'd ever done. But as he watched her drive away, his daughter's heartbeat still echoing in his ears, Lucas knew he'd made the right choice. For the first time in his life, he was building something that mattered more than power. He was building a family, even if it took everything he had, even if he had to become someone completely new to deserve it. The snow that had started falling outside Dr. Martinez's office turned into a full storm by evening. Lucas sat in his penthouse office overlooking the city, watching the white blanket transform familiar streets into something softer, cleaner. His phone sat on the desk in front of him, Mara's last text message still visible on the screen. Made it home safe. Thank you for coming today. 4 simple words that felt like a victory. Dominic knocked once before entering, carrying a tablet and the expression of someone delivering news that wouldn't be welcome. We've got a problem. Lucas didn't look away from the window. What kind of problem? The kind that involves your ex-wife getting flowers delivered to her apartment an hour ago. Anonymous sender. The card said, "Congratulations on the baby." Now Lucas turned, his entire body going still. Show me. Dominic pulled up security footage from the camera his team had installed across from Mara's building. The timestamp showed 6:15, a delivery van, standard floral company logo, driver in uniform. Nothing remarkable except for one detail. The driver never went back to the van after delivering the flowers. He walked to the corner and got into a different vehicle. Cross? Lucas asked, though he already knew the answer. No, we've had eyes on her continuously since your meeting. She's been clean, showed up for her first day of work, hasn't made contact with anyone suspicious. Dominic swiped to another image. This is our delivery guy without the uniform. Name's Peter Volkov, former muscle for the Hendry organization. Lucas's jaw tightened. I thought we had everyone from that crew accounted for. We did. Volkov's been off the grid for 8 months. My guess is he's been waiting, watching, looking for the perfect moment to strike. And he found it. Lucas was already moving, grabbing his coat from the back of his chair. Where is he now? Lost him in traffic. But boss, you need to think about this. You go charging over to Mara's apartment, you're going to scare her and prove every fear she has about your world following her. Someone just sent threatening flowers to my pregnant ex-wife. I'm not going to sit here and strategize while she's vulnerable. So send a team, let us handle it quietly. Lucas paused with his hand on the door. Dominic was right. Showing up at Mara's door in full protective mode would undo every bit of progress they'd made. But the thought of her alone in that apartment, unaware of the threat, made his skin crawl. Split the difference, he said finally. Put a team on her building, maximum discretion. I want someone watching every entrance, every window, every possible access point, and I want Volkov found. Tonight. Done. What about Mara? She's going to notice the flowers were anonymous. Lucas pulled out his phone and made a call he'd been avoiding for weeks. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Well, Lucas Vale. I thought you'd forgotten my number. Hello, Rachel. Mara's sister had never liked him, had actively campaigned for the divorce, and would probably slam the phone down the moment she realized why he was calling. But she loved her sister more than she hated him, and right now that was what mattered. I need your help. The pause was long enough that Lucas thought she might actually hang up. Then, this better be good. Someone just sent Mara anonymous flowers. It's a threat, not a gift. I need you to go check on her without mentioning my name. Make up an excuse. You were in the neighborhood, you wanted to see how she was feeling, whatever. Just get those flowers out of her apartment and make sure she's okay. You're serious. Rachel's voice shifted from hostile to concerned in an instant. Someone's threatening Mara? I'm handling it, but I can't show up myself without scaring her or making her think I'm overreacting. You, on the other hand, have legitimate reason to drop by. If anything happens to my sister because of your world, it won't. I promise you, Rachel. I'm not the same man I was 6 months ago. Another pause. Fine. I'm 20 minutes away. But Lucas, if this is you manipulating her, if you're using fear to get back into her life, I will end you myself. Understood. The line went dead. Lucas pocketed his phone and turned to Dominic. Rachel's going over. Make sure your team knows she's friendly. Already done. And boss? For what it's worth, calling her sister was smart. Shows you're thinking about what Mara needs instead of what you want. I'm learning. Lucas moved to the window again, watching snow fall on a city that suddenly felt dangerous in ways it hadn't in years. What do we know about Volkov's capabilities? He's muscle, not strategist. Works for money, not ideology. If he's making moves against Mara, someone's paying him to do it. So we find out who's writing the checks. Working on it. But Lucas, there's something else you should know. Dominic's hesitation was uncharacteristic enough to make Lucas tense. The flowers weren't just a threat. They were a message, specifically for you. What kind of message? The arrangement was lilies and baby's breath. Very specific combination. It's what Marcus Hendry used to send to people he was about to eliminate. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. Marcus Hendry had been dead for 2 years, his organization dismantled, his legacy scattered to the winds. But clearly someone remembered his methods. Someone who wanted Lucas to know this wasn't random violence. It was revenge. Who else knew about Hendry's flower arrangements? Lucas asked. His inner circle. Maybe a dozen people, most of whom are dead or in prison. Dominic pulled up a list on his tablet. But there's one name that stands out. Victor Hendry, Marcus's younger brother. He was out of the country when we took down the organization, and he's been radio silent ever since. Until now. Until now. Dominic set the tablet down. If Victor's making a play, he's not going to stop with flowers. He's going to escalate. Lucas was already thinking 3 moves ahead, running scenarios, calculating risks. Get me everything we have on Victor. Travel records, financial transactions, known associates. I want to know what he's been doing for the past 2 years and why he's surfacing now. On it. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure Mara and our daughter are protected. And then I'm going to end this before Victor has a chance to escalate. Boss, if you're thinking about going after him directly, I'm thinking about protecting my family. Lucas's voice was hard. Everything else is secondary. Across town, Mara sat on her couch staring at the flower arrangement that had arrived an hour ago. The lilies were beautiful, the baby's breath delicate, but something about the combination made her uneasy. She'd received flowers plenty of times in her life, but never with such a cryptic card. Congratulations on the baby. No signature, no indication of who sent them or why, just those 4 words that felt more like a warning than a celebration. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Coming over. Don't ask why. Need to see your face. Mara smiled despite her unease. Rachel had a sixth sense for when something was wrong, had probably felt a disturbance in the sister force or whatever cosmic connection they shared. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. You look terrible, Rachel announced, sweeping in with a bag from Mara's favorite Thai restaurant. When's the last time you ate something that didn't come from a can? Hello to you too. Mara accepted the hug, breathing in her sister's familiar perfume. And I ate this morning. Cereal counts. Cereal does not count. Rachel's eyes landed on the flower arrangement and her expression shifted. Where did those come from? They were delivered this afternoon. Anonymous. Anonymous. Rachel moved closer to the flowers, her body language shifting into something protective. That's weird, right? You think it's weird? I think it's probably someone from the prenatal yoga class being sweet. Why are you acting strange? Rachel didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pulled out her phone and took several pictures of the arrangement from different angles. I'm not acting strange. I'm being cautious. There's a difference. Rachel, what's going on? Her sister's face went through several expressions before settling on determined honesty. Lucas called me. Mara's stomach dropped. What? About an hour ago. He was worried about you. Said someone sent you flowers and he wanted me to check on you. Rachel held up a hand before Mara could interrupt. Before you get angry, he didn't send them. He's actually concerned this might be some kind of threat. Threat? Rachel, they're flowers. From an anonymous sender who knows you're pregnant and knows where you live. Rachel was already carefully picking up the vase. I'm taking these. You can be mad at me later, but right now I'm listening to my gut, and my gut says these are bad news. You're being paranoid. Maybe. Or maybe I'm being smart. Rachel headed for the door, then paused. Mara, I know you're trying to keep your distance from Lucas and his world. I respect that. I encouraged it. But if there's even a chance he's right about this, you need to take it seriously. He's manipulating you, using fear to what? Get me to come check on you? Mission accomplished, I'm here. But he's not. He called me instead of showing up himself, which means he's actually respecting your boundaries while still trying to keep you safe. Mara sank back onto the couch, one hand on her belly, where the baby was doing her evening gymnastics routine. I don't know what to think anymore. Then don't think. Just let me take the creepy flowers, and you eat some pad thai, and we'll figure out the rest tomorrow. Rachel softened her tone. You don't have to let Lucas back into your life. You don't have to trust him, or forgive him, or anything else. But you do have to stay safe. For you, and for my future niece. The mention of the baby made Mara's defenses crack. Rachel was right. This wasn't just about her pride or her independence anymore. She was responsible for a life, and that meant accepting help even when it came from complicated sources. Okay, she said quietly, take the flowers. But I'm not calling Lucas. You don't have to. I'll handle it. Rachel balanced the vase in one arm and the Thai food in the other. Now eat. I'll be back in an hour and I'm staying the night. Non-negotiable. After Rachel left, Mara sat in the sudden silence of her apartment, picking at pad thai she didn't really taste. The space where the flowers had been felt conspicuous, like a gap in her armor. She pulled out her phone and stared at Lucas's contact information for a long moment before setting it down again. She wouldn't call him. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing he'd been right about danger following her, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the careful distance she'd been maintaining was about to become impossible. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Mara almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Mara Hale? The voice was male, unfamiliar, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Or should I say Mara Vale? I understand congratulations are in order. Her blood ran cold. Who is this? Someone who knew your ex-husband when he was still building his empire. Someone who remembers the debts he owes. The voice was smooth, almost pleasant. Tell me, does he know you're carrying his child? Or is that still your little secret? I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you don't. Just like you don't know that Lucas has been watching you for weeks, that he's had security following you, that he's been dismantling threats you didn't even know existed. The voice paused. He's trying so hard to be better. It's almost admirable. But some debts can't be paid with good intentions. Leave me alone. Soon. But first I need you to deliver a message. Tell Lucas that Victor Hendry sends his regards. Tell him the flowers were just the beginning. Tell him that everything he took from my family will be repaid in blood. The line went dead. Mara sat frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her heart hammering so hard she thought she might be sick. Victor Hendry. She didn't know the name, but the message was clear enough. Someone from Lucas's past was coming for revenge, and they decided she was the perfect weapon. Her hands shook as she dialed Lucas's number. He answered on the first ring. Mara, are you okay? Someone just called me. Her voice came out thin, frightened. He said his name was Victor Hendry. He said to tell you the flowers were just the beginning. The silence on the other end was more terrifying than the phone call had been. When Lucas spoke again, his voice was completely controlled, which somehow made it worse. Are you at home? Yes? Is Rachel still there? She just left with the flowers. She's coming back. Good. I need you to listen to me very carefully, Mara. I'm sending a security team to your building. They're going to stay outside, keep watch. Make sure no one approaches who shouldn't be there. You won't see them, and they won't interfere with your life. But they'll be there. Lucas, what's going on? Who is Victor Hendry? He's someone I heard a long time ago. Someone who has every reason to want revenge. Lucas's voice softened. I'm so sorry, Mara. I thought I'd eliminated every threat. I thought you'd be safe. You said you were going legitimate. You said things were different. They are different. I am different, but my past doesn't care about my good intentions. There was noise in the background, movement, urgency. I'm coming over. No. Mara? No. She stood up, pacing the small living room, her free hand pressed against her racing heart. You coming here proves his point. He's trying to drive us together, trying to make me dependent on you again. I won't do that. This isn't about us. This is about keeping you and our daughter alive. And I'm telling you, the security team is enough. I don't need you physically here. I need you to handle this the way you promised you would. Without violence, without becoming the man I left. Lucas was quiet for so long she thought the connection had dropped. Okay, he said finally. Okay, the team will be there in 10 minutes. Rachel will be back soon. You lock your doors. You don't answer for anyone you don't know. And you call me if anything feels wrong. I will. And Mara? I'm going to end this. Not the way I used to end things, but it will end. After they hung up, Mara stood in her living room feeling the weight of decisions made years ago coming back to haunt her. She'd married Lucas knowing his world was dangerous. She'd divorced him believing she could escape that danger. But Victor Hendry's phone call had made one thing crystal clear. Some worlds didn't let you go just because you wanted out. The baby kicked hard, as if reminding Mara that this wasn't just about her anymore. She had someone else to protect now, someone who deserved a life free from threats and revenge, and the sins of her father's past. Rachel returned 20 minutes later to find Mara still standing in the same spot, arms wrapped around her middle, tears streaming down her face. Hey, hey! Rachel dropped her bags and pulled her sister into a fierce hug. What happened? He called me, Victor Hendry. He knows about the baby. He knows where I live. He knows everything. Did you call Lucas? Yes. Good. What did he say? That he's sending security, that he's going to handle it. Mara pulled back, wiping her eyes. Rachel, I'm so scared. Not for me. For her. What if she grows up in a world where people want to hurt her just because of who her father is? Rachel cupped Mara's face in both hands, forcing eye contact. Then we make sure she doesn't. We make sure Lucas actually follows through on going legitimate. We make sure the past stays in the past. But right now, tonight, we focus on keeping you both safe. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. Because you're the strongest person I know, and because that little girl needs you to be strong. Rachel pulled Mara toward the couch. Now sit. I'm going to make you tea, you're going to breathe, and we're going to get through tonight. Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. Across town, Lucas stood in his office with Dominic and three of his most trusted operatives. A map of the city spread across the conference table. Red pins marked known locations associated with the old Hendry organization. Blue pins showed potential hiding spots for Victor. He's been planning this for 2 years, Lucas said, his voice cold and focused. Which means he's not acting impulsively. Every move is calculated. The phone call tomorrow was a power play, Dominic added. He's showing you he can reach her whenever he wants. Then we show him he can't. Lucas placed a black pin on the map, marking Mara's building. This becomes a fortress. I don't care if we have to buy every apartment in the building and fill them with our people. She doesn't leave for anything without protection. She's not going to like that, boss. I don't care if she likes it. I care if she's alive. Lucas's hand clenched into a fist. Victor wants to hurt me through her. We don't give him this chance. One of the operatives, a woman named Sarah Chen, who specialized in digital tracking, spoke up. I've been running Victor's financials. He's been moving money through a shell corporation based in the Cayman Islands. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but consistent. The pattern suggests he's been paying for information. What kind of information? Everything. Property records, medical files, security footage. If it's digital and it's about you or your ex-wife, he's bought it. Sarah pulled up a screen showing transaction records. The spending increased significantly 3 months ago, right when you started restructuring your operations. Lucas stared at the numbers, seeing the pattern. Victor hadn't just been planning revenge. He'd been watching Lucas's transformation, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The moment when Lucas had something to lose beyond money or power. He knows about the baby, Lucas said quietly. He's known for at least 6 weeks, Sarah confirmed. There's a payment to someone at Dr. Martinez's office dated back to late December. The betrayal of it, someone in Mara's medical practice selling information to his enemy, made Lucas want to burn the world down. But that was the old way. The way that had cost him everything. I want the leak identified and eliminated, he said. Legally. Get them fired, blacklisted, charged if possible. But no violence. Dominic raised an eyebrow. You're really committed to this new approach. I promised Mara I'd be different. I'm keeping that promise. Lucas turned back to the map. But being different doesn't mean being weak. Victor wants a war? We'll give him one, just not the kind he's expecting. What's the play? Lucas smiled, and it wasn't a kind expression. We dismantle his support system. Every person he's paid, every resource he's counting on, every safe house he thinks he has, we take it all away. We make him so isolated, so exposed, that his only option is to come directly at me, and when he does, we'll be ready. That could take weeks. Then we work fast. Lucas pointed to various locations on the map. I want teams here, here, and here. Start making offers. Anyone working for Victor gets a better deal working for us. Anyone who refuses gets exposed to the authorities. We flood the zone with so much pressure that Victor has nowhere to turn. And if he goes after Mara before we can neutralize him, he won't get the chance, because she's going to have protection she doesn't even know exists. Lucas pulled out his phone and made a call. Jennifer, I need you to do something for me. Jennifer Reeves was one of the best private security consultants in the city, a former federal agent who'd built a reputation on keeping high-profile clients safe without them even noticing. She listened to Lucas's request, asked 3 pointed questions, and agreed without hesitation. I can have someone in place by tomorrow morning, she said. Female, early 30s, excellent cover story. Mara won't suspect a thing. Make it happen. And Jennifer, this is personal. I need your absolute best. You'll get it. I'll send over the operative's file in an hour. Lucas ended the call and turned back to his team. We have 48 hours to make Victor Hendry's life impossible. Let's get to work. The next morning dawned clear and cold, the snow from the previous day turning the city into something from a postcard. Mara woke to find Rachel already in the kitchen making breakfast, moving quietly to avoid waking her. Morning, Mara said, shuffling in with one hand supporting her back. You didn't have to stay. Yes, I did, and I'm staying again tonight, so don't argue. Rachel slid a plate of scrambled eggs and toast across the counter. Eat. You're eating for two, remember? Mara picked at the eggs, her appetite non-existent despite knowing she should eat. The phone call from Victor Hendry had haunted her dreams, turning sleep into a series of anxious half-visions, where shadows had faces and flowers bloomed into weapons. A knock at the door made both women freeze. I'll get it, Rachel said, moving toward the door with her phone already out, ready to call for help. Through the peephole, they could see a young woman holding a box, wearing the uniform of a local coffee shop. Rachel opened the door with the chain still on. Hi! The woman's smile was warm and genuine. I'm so sorry to bother you, but I'm new to the building, just moved into 3C, and the coffee shop got my order wrong. They sent me 2 breakfast platters instead of 1, and I thought maybe you might want the extra. It seems a shame to waste it. Rachel looked at Mara, who shrugged. The woman seemed harmless enough, and the smell of fresh coffee was already drifting through the crack in the door. That's really kind of you, Rachel said, opening the door fully. I'm Rachel, and this is my sister Mara. Claire. The woman handed over the box, her eyes briefly meeting Mara's with a flash of something that might have been recognition, though Mara was certain they'd never met. I hope you enjoy it, and hey, if you ever need anything, sugar, eggs, someone to talk to, I'm just down the hall. After Claire left, Mara and Rachel opened the box to find fresh croissants, fruit, and 2 perfectly made lattes, 1 regular, 1 decaf. Well, that was nice, Rachel said, biting into a croissant. Maybe the building's not such a bad place after all. But Mara was staring at the box, at the careful way everything had been arranged, at the precision that spoke of someone who paid attention to details. The decaf latte especially. How would a stranger know she was pregnant when her coat had covered her belly? She thought about Lucas's promise to send protection, about the way he'd always operated in shadows and careful plans, about how he'd sworn things would be different but the methods would be the same. Claire wasn't just a friendly neighbor, she was Lucas's insurance policy. And despite everything, despite her anger and her fear and her determination to stay independent, Mara couldn't quite bring herself to be angry about it, because knowing someone was watching meant she could breathe a little easier, meant her daughter was a little safer, meant that maybe, just maybe, Lucas was learning how to protect without controlling. She picked up the decaf latte and took a sip. It was perfect. Just knowing Claire was there, 3 doors down, pretending to be an ordinary neighbor, should have made Mara angrier than it did. But as she sat sipping the perfectly made decaf latte, feeling her daughter kick against her ribs in steady rhythm, she couldn't summon the outrage she knew she should feel. Rachel watched her over the rim of her own coffee cup. You know, don't you? Know what? That the friendly neighbor is too convenient to be coincidence. That Lucas put her there. Mara set down her cup carefully. I know. And you're okay with it? I don't know if I'm okay with it, but I'm too tired to fight it right now. She pressed both hands against her belly, feeling the baby settle. Someone threatened my daughter yesterday, Rachel. Someone who knows where I live and what I'm carrying and exactly how to hurt the people I care about. So if Lucas wants to pay someone to live down the hall and make sure I don't get murdered in my sleep, I'm choosing to see that as the lesser evil. That's a hell of a compromise from the woman who filed for divorce specifically to get away from his protection. I filed for divorce to get away from being collateral damage in his war. This is different. Is it? Rachel leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you're letting him back in through the same door you locked 6 months ago, just with better window dressing. Mara wanted to argue, wanted to insist that accepting security wasn't the same as accepting Lucas back into her life. But the truth was more complicated than that. Every compromise she made, every boundary she allowed him to cross for the sake of safety, brought them closer to the dynamic that had nearly destroyed her the first time. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lucas that made her heart do something complicated in her chest. I know you probably figured out Claire isn't just a neighbor. I'm sorry for the deception, but not for keeping you safe. If you want her gone, say the word. Your choice. Always your choice. Rachel read the message over her shoulder and let out a low whistle. Okay, I'll give him credit. That's actual respect for boundaries disguised as tactical security. He's learning, Mara said softly. Or he's getting better at manipulation. Maybe both. Mara typed back a response, her fingers hovering over the send button for a long moment before she committed. She can stay. But Lucas, no more surprises. If there's something I need to know, you tell me. No protecting me from information. His response came almost immediately. Deal. Can I see you today? There's something we need to talk about. Mara's stomach dropped. Nothing good ever started with "we need to talk." But avoiding difficult conversations wouldn't make Victor Hendry disappear or make her pregnancy any less complicated. Where? She typed. Your choice. Anywhere you feel safe. She thought about the diner, about the doctor's office, about all the neutral territories they'd been carefully occupying. Then she made a decision that surprised herself. My apartment. 2:00. Rachel will be here. I'll bring lunch. After Lucas confirmed, Mara set down her phone and met her sister's concerned gaze. He's coming here. I heard. You sure about this? No, but I'm tired of running from conversations, and I need to know what he's planning to do about Victor Hendry before someone else gets hurt. The hours until 2:00 passed in a strange suspension of normality. Rachel insisted on cleaning the apartment despite Mara's protests that it didn't matter, and Mara found herself changing clothes 3 times before settling on leggings and an oversized sweater that didn't quite hide her pregnancy but at least felt comfortable. Lucas arrived exactly at 2 carrying bags from an Italian place Mara had mentioned loving once, years ago. The fact that he remembered made something in her chest ache. Thank you for letting me come, he said, setting the bags on her small dining table. Rachel materialized from the bedroom like a protective ghost, arms crossed, expression neutral but watchful. Rachel. Lucas nodded to her with careful respect. I'm glad you're here. Are you? Rachel's tone was skeptical. Most men don't love having witnesses when they're trying to manipulate their ex-wives. Most men aren't trying to keep their ex-wives alive while respecting their autonomy. It's a narrow path, and I'm grateful for the supervision. Lucas pulled containers from the bags, his movements precise and controlled. I brought enough for 3. I hope that's okay. Despite herself, Rachel's expression softened slightly. That was thoughtful. They sat around the small table, the apartment feeling both too small and too large for the conversation ahead. Lucas served food with the same careful attention he'd always brought to everything, making sure Mara had what she needed before taking anything for himself. So, Mara said, breaking the silence, what did you need to talk about? Lucas set down his fork, his expression serious. Victor Hendry. I've spent the past 36 hours learning everything I can about his operation, his resources, his weaknesses, and I've developed a plan to neutralize him. Neutralize? Rachel's voice was sharp. That's a very clinical word for what you usually do to threats. I'm aware of what it sounds like. But I mean it literally. I'm going to remove his ability to threaten anyone without removing his ability to breathe. Lucas pulled out his phone and brought up a series of files. Victor has been operating through a network of paid informants and contractors. In the past day and a half, I've made contact with every single one of them and offered them better deals to walk away. 17 have already accepted. Mara leaned forward, studying the documentation. And the ones who didn't accept? Have been exposed to the relevant authorities, fraud, tax evasion, immigration violations, nothing violent, nothing that implicates me. Just clean removal from the board. That still leaves Victor himself, Rachel pointed out. It does, which is why the next phase is more direct. Lucas swiped to a different file. Victor's been living in a hotel in Midtown, paying cash, staying off the grid. But he's made one critical mistake. He's been using the same encrypted communication service for all his transactions, and I've gained access to it. Mara felt her stomach clench. How? Legally. The service was hacked 2 months ago by a cybersecurity firm conducting penetration testing. The vulnerabilities were supposed to be reported and fixed, but my people got to the information first. Everything Victor's said or planned for the past 8 weeks is on record. And you're going to do what with this information? Mara asked carefully. Lucas met her eyes, and she saw the struggle there, the old instincts warring with new intentions. I'm going to give him one chance to walk away. I'm going to meet with him, show him that I know everything, and offer him a choice. He can take a very generous payment and disappear, or he can face legal consequences for every crime I can prove he's committed. No violence, no threats, just cold, hard leverage. And if he refuses both options, Rachel asked, then I turn everything over to federal prosecutors and let them handle it. He's violated enough laws that he'll be in prison for the next 20 years minimum. Mara sat back, processing this. It was calculated, precise, and completely different from the way Lucas would have handled things a year ago. No bodies, no disappearances, just systematic dismantling through legal pressure. "When are you meeting with him?" she asked. "Tomorrow night. Neutral location, public enough to prevent anything dramatic, but private enough to have an honest conversation." "And you trust him to actually meet with you instead of just trying to hurt me to get to you?" "No, which is why you're not going to be here tomorrow night." Lucas's expression was apologetic but firm. "I've arranged for you to stay at a secure location, just for one night. Rachel can come with you, and there will be medical staff on site in case the baby decides to make an early appearance." "You want me to go into hiding?" "I want you somewhere Victor can't find you while I eliminate him as a threat. After tomorrow, this will be over." Mara wanted to refuse on principle, wanted to insist that she wouldn't be driven from her home by threats and fear. But the baby kicked hard against her ribs, reminding her that principle was a luxury she couldn't afford anymore. "Where?" she asked finally. Lucas seemed to understand that was as close to agreement as she'd get. "A private medical facility about an hour outside the city. It's where high-risk pregnancies go for observation. You'll have your own suite, full amenities, and if anything goes wrong health-wise, you're already where you need to be." "That's actually not a terrible plan," Rachel admitted grudgingly. "I was expecting something more dramatic, underground bunker, armed guards, that kind of thing." "I considered it, but Mara made it very clear that she wants transparency and normalcy wherever possible. A medical facility provides security without feeling like a prison." The fact that he'd listened, that he'd actually taken her concerns and shaped his protection around them, meant more than Mara wanted to admit. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the moment Victor called you. I had contingencies for every scenario." Lucas's voice softened. "I know you don't want to need me, Mara. I know you built a life specifically to not need anyone. But our daughter deserves parents who are both alive to raise her. So I'm asking you to let me do this one thing. Let me make Victor Hendry go away so you never have to think about him again." Mara looked at Rachel, who gave a small nod. Then she looked back at Lucas and saw not the dangerous man she'd married, but the father of her child trying desperately to be better than his past. "Okay," she said. "One night. But Lucas, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, I need to know you didn't sacrifice everything you've been building just to eliminate one threat. I need to know you kept your word about doing things differently." "You have my word." Lucas reached across the table, palm up, offering. After a moment's hesitation, Mara placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers with careful gentleness, and the contact sent electricity up her arm, same as it always had. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I'm not the man I was. I can't be. Not if I want to be the father she deserves." They finished lunch with carefully neutral conversation, avoiding the dangerous topics, pretending for an hour that they were just three people sharing a meal instead of three people standing at the edge of violence trying to find another way through. When Lucas finally left, he squeezed Mara's hand one more time at the door. "I'll have a car pick you up tomorrow at 4. Pack light. You'll only be gone overnight." After he left, Mara stood in her quiet apartment feeling the weight of decisions made and decisions still to come. Rachel came up behind her, resting her chin on Mara's shoulder. "You still love him," Rachel said. It wasn't a question. "I never stopped loving him. That was never the problem." "What was the problem?" "I couldn't love him and survive him at the same time. And I wasn't sure which one would win." Mara turned to face her sister. "But maybe he really is changing. Maybe it's possible to love someone and not lose yourself in the process. Or maybe you're just tired and pregnant and scared, and he's very good at giving you exactly what you need to hear." "Maybe. But I guess I'm about to find out." The next day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Mara packed a small bag, including the ridiculous number of comfort items Rachel insisted were essential. Her favorite pillow, the lavender spray she used to help sleep, 3 different books she wouldn't have time to read. Claire knocked on the door around noon with fresh muffins and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Heard you're heading out of town for a bit," Claire said casually. "News travels fast." "In this building? Always does." Claire handed over the muffins. "Travel safe. I'll keep an eye on your place while you're gone." After she left, Mara turned to Rachel. She's not even pretending to be subtle. Would you rather she pretended you weren't leaving right before Lucas does something potentially stupid? Fair point. The car arrived at exactly 4 o'clock. A black SUV with tinted windows and a driver who introduced herself as Margaret with the kind of competence that suggested former military. The drive out of the city was smooth and professional, Margaret navigating traffic with ease while classical music played softly through the speakers. The medical facility was beautiful in an understated way, all clean lines and large windows overlooking snow-covered grounds. A doctor met them at the entrance, a woman in her 50s with warm eyes and capable hands. Ms. Hale, I'm Dr. Patterson. We're set up for your stay. Let's get you settled and do a quick check on the baby, just to make sure everything's running smoothly. The suite was more like a luxury hotel room than a hospital, with a comfortable bed, a sitting area, and a bathroom with a tub large enough for Mara to actually use. Rachel claimed the sofa near the window while Dr. Patterson went through the standard checks: blood pressure, fetal heartbeat, measuring the baby. Everything looks perfect, Dr. Patterson announced. You're measuring right on schedule. Baby's heart rate is excellent. Any concerns or discomfort I should know about? Just the usual third trimester complaints: backache, trouble sleeping, feeling like I'm carrying a soccer player. Dr. Patterson smiled. All completely normal. You've got my direct number if anything changes, and I'm on site all night. Try to relax, get some rest. You're safe here. After she left, Mara stood at the window watching the sun set over the snowy landscape. Somewhere in the city, Lucas was preparing to meet with Victor Hendry. Somewhere out there, the man who'd threatened her daughter was about to face consequences for his choices. And she was here, protected and isolated, trusting Lucas to handle this the right way, even though trust had never come easily between them. Her phone buzzed. Lucas. Everything okay? We're here. Doctor says the baby's fine. Good. I'll call you when it's done. Lucas? Be careful. The pause before his response felt like an eternity. Always. Rachel came to stand beside her at the window. You know there's a chance this goes sideways, right? That Victor doesn't take the deal and Lucas has to improvise? I know. And you're okay with that? Mara pressed her hand against the cold window glass, watching her breath fog the surface. I'm okay with trusting that the man I fell in love with is still in there somewhere under all the damage and defense mechanisms. I'm okay with believing he wants to be better for our daughter, and I'm okay with admitting that maybe I can't do this alone. That's a lot of growth for someone who wouldn't even take his money 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I didn't have a daughter to think about. Everything's different now. They ordered dinner from the facility's surprisingly good kitchen and ate in companionable silence, both of them checking their phones more often than necessary. 8 o'clock came and went. 9. 10. At 10:30, Mara's phone rang. Lucas. It's done, he said, his voice tight with controlled emotion. What happened? Victor took the deal. $5 million and a one-way ticket to anywhere that isn't the United States. He signed papers agreeing never to contact you or me or anyone associated with either of us. And he turned over every piece of information he had about my operations. Mara sank onto the bed, relief flooding through her so strongly she felt dizzy. Just like that? Just like that. Turns out when you systematically dismantle someone's support network and present them with irrefutable evidence of their crimes, they become remarkably reasonable. Lucas paused. He's at the airport now. I have people watching to make sure he actually gets on the plane. By morning, Victor Hendry will be someone else's problem. And I didn't hurt him. I didn't threaten him with violence. I showed him numbers and legal documents and gave him a choice. He made the smart one. Lucas, Mara's throat closed around words she wasn't ready to say. Thank you. You don't have to thank me for protecting our daughter. That's just what fathers do. His voice softened. Get some rest. I'll have the car pick you up tomorrow morning, bring you home. And Mara? This is over. Really over. You can go back to your life without looking over your shoulder. After they hung up, Mara lay back on the comfortable bed and let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened. Lucas had faced down a threat from his past and chosen the hard path over the easy one. He'd kept his word about doing things differently. He'd proven that maybe, just maybe, people really could change. Rachel appeared in the doorway. Victor's gone? He's gone. And Lucas is okay? He's okay. Mara smiled through sudden tears she couldn't quite explain. He actually did it, Rachel. He handled a threat without violence. He kept his word. So what does that mean for you two? I don't know yet, but I think it means I'm willing to find out. The next morning dawned clear and bright, winter sun streaming through the suite's large windows. Mara woke feeling more rested than she had in weeks. The constant low-level anxiety she'd been carrying finally eased. Margaret arrived at 9 to drive them back to the city, professional and efficient as ever. When they pulled up outside Mara's building, Lucas was waiting on the steps. He looked tired, Mara thought. There were shadows under his eyes that suggested he hadn't slept, and his usually immaculate appearance was slightly rumpled. But when he saw her getting out of the car, his whole face transformed with relief so profound it made her chest ache. "You're okay," he said, moving toward her. "I'm okay, we're okay." Mara gestured to her belly. "She's been kicking up a storm all morning. I think she missed her usual routine." Lucas's hand moved toward her stomach, then stopped, asking permission without words. Mara took his hand and placed it where the baby was doing her morning gymnastics. His eyes went wide when he felt the kick. "She's strong," he said, wonder coloring his voice. "She's a fighter. Wonder where she gets that from." They stood like that for a moment, Lucas's hand on her belly, feeling their daughter move, before Rachel cleared her throat meaningfully. Lucas pulled back, professional distance reasserting itself. "I had your apartment checked while you were gone," he said. "New locks, security system, the works. Claire will still be down the hall if you need her, but you don't have to feel like you're under surveillance anymore." "And if I want to feel like I'm under surveillance sometimes?" Mara asked, surprising herself with the admission. "If I want to know someone's watching, then they'll be watching, whatever makes you feel safe." Rachel grabbed Mara's overnight bag and headed inside, making it very clear she was giving them privacy. Mara stood on the sidewalk with Lucas, the morning cold biting through her coat, and made a decision that terrified and excited her in equal measure. "I have my next doctor's appointment Thursday, 2 o'clock, same place. You should come." "I'd like that. And after, maybe we could talk about what this looks like going forward, about how we co-parent when we both want to do better than we know how." Lucas's smile was small but genuine. "I'd like that too." "I'm not saying we're getting back together, Lucas. I need you to understand that. What we had before, that's done. But maybe we can build something new, something better." Something honest," Lucas agreed, "where you tell me when I'm overstepping and I actually listen, where I trust you to know what you need instead of deciding for you." "That sounds impossibly difficult." "Probably, but I've never walked away from something difficult just because it scared me." "Neither have I." Mara wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. "Thursday, then." "Thursday." She turned to go inside, then paused. "Lucas, what you did yesterday with Victor, that took courage. The kind of courage that matters more than the kind you're used to using. I learned from the best." His eyes held hers. "You were always braver than me, Mara. You walked away when I couldn't. You chose hard truth over comfortable lies. You taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit you can't do everything alone." The words hung in the winter air between them, honest and painful and full of promise. Then Mara went inside, leaving Lucas on the sidewalk, both of them understanding that something fundamental had shifted. The war was over. The threats were neutralized. And ahead of them lay something infinitely more terrifying than any enemy, the possibility of getting this right, of building a family not on the foundation of who they'd been, but on the possibility of who they might become. Together. Thursday arrived wrapped in the kind of crisp March air that promised spring wasn't far behind. Mara stood in front of her bathroom mirror, studying the way her body had transformed over the past months. At 34 weeks, she was unmistakably, unavoidably pregnant. Her daughter, their daughter, seemed to have claimed every available inch of space, making simple tasks like tying shoes an Olympic event. Rachel had gone back to her own apartment 2 days ago, satisfied that the immediate danger had passed, but extracting a promise that Mara would call at the slightest concern. Claire still lived 3 doors down, and occasionally Mara would catch her in the hallway and they'd exchange pleasantries that felt almost genuine beneath the layer of professional security. It was a strange new normal, but it was normal nonetheless. Lucas had texted twice since their conversation on the sidewalk. Once to confirm Thursday's appointment and once to ask if she needed anything. Both messages were brief, respectful of boundaries, giving her space to breathe. It was such a departure from his old pattern of overwhelming attention that Mara found herself almost missing the intensity. Almost. She arrived at Dr. Martinez's office 10 minutes early and found Lucas already in the waiting room, dressed in jeans and a dark sweater that made him look younger somehow. Less like the dangerous man who'd built an empire, and more like someone who might actually know how to change a diaper. "You're early," she said, settling into the chair beside him. "So are you." "I'm always early for medical appointments. Comes from nursing training." "I'm early because I was terrified of being late." Lucas's honesty was disarming. "And because I've been looking forward to this all week." Before Mara could respond, the nurse called her name. They followed her back, went through the standard checks, and then Dr. Martinez swept in with her usual efficient warmth. "Mara, Lucas, good to see you both." She washed her hands and pulled up Mara's chart on the computer. "So we're at 34 weeks, which means we're getting close. How are you feeling?" "Tired, huge, ready to meet her but also terrified." "All completely normal." Dr. Martinez began the examination, her hands gentle and practiced. "Any contractions? Unusual pain?" "Just the usual third trimester discomfort. She's been very active, though, especially at night." "Also normal. Babies have a terrible sense of timing." Dr. Martinez pulled out the Doppler, and once again the room filled with the rapid whoosh of their daughter's heartbeat. Lucas's hand found Mara's and squeezed gently. "Strong and steady," Dr. Martinez confirmed. "She's doing beautifully. Let's do a quick ultrasound to check position." The monitor flickered to life, and there she was, their daughter, curled in the small universe of Mara's body, one tiny hand pressed against her face. The image was clearer than any they'd seen before, detailed enough to make out features, the slope of her nose, the curve of her chin. "She's head down, perfectly positioned," Dr. Martinez said. "Good size, good movement. I'd say we're looking at another 4 to 6 weeks, give or take." 4 to 6 weeks, Lucas repeated, his voice rough. "That's so soon. That's parenthood. Always comes faster than you expect." Dr. Martinez printed out several images from the ultrasound and handed them to Lucas. "Start thinking about your birth plan, Mara. Who you want in the delivery room, what kind of pain management you prefer, all of that. And Lucas, if you're planning to be there, I'd recommend taking a childbirth class. First-time fathers do much better when they know what to expect." After the appointment, they stood in the parking lot with the ultrasound photos between them, like a bridge. Lucas studied the images with an expression Mara couldn't quite read, wonder and fear, and something that looked almost like grief. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm looking at my daughter's face. I'm so far from okay, I don't even know what the word means anymore." He looked up at Mara. "Can we talk? Really talk?" "There's a coffee shop around the corner that—" "My apartment," Mara interrupted. "I'm tired of neutral territory. If we're going to figure this out, we might as well do it somewhere comfortable." Lucas looked surprised but nodded. "I'll follow you." 20 minutes later, they were back in Mara's small living room, the space that had felt like a fortress of independence, now feeling oddly incomplete without his presence. Mara made tea while Lucas stood by the window, looking out at the city with the careful stillness of someone trying not to take up too much space. "So," Mara said, handing him a mug, "we need to talk about what happens when she arrives. I want to be there, in the delivery room, if you'll let me." The request shouldn't have surprised her, but it did. "Lucas, childbirth is intense. It's messy and painful and not exactly the kind of thing I know what it is. I've read 4 books about it in the past week, watched videos, talked to Dominic's wife about her experience." Lucas set down his mug and turned to face her fully. "I wasn't there for the pregnancy. I missed every moment of the past 8 months because you were protecting yourself and our daughter from my world. I understand why you did that. But I'm asking you to let me be there for her birth. Let me be the first person she sees. Let me cut the cord and count her fingers and promise her that I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worthy of being her father." Mara's throat closed around words that wouldn't come. She'd imagined the birth 100 different ways, alone, with Rachel, with a stranger from a birthing class she'd never quite gotten around to attending. But she'd never let herself imagine Lucas there, solid and present, sharing the moment that would change everything. "What if you can't handle it?" she asked quietly. "What if you see me in pain and your instinct is to fix it with money or power or all the tools that don't work in a delivery room? Then you tell me to shut up and hold your hand, and I do exactly that." Lucas moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Mara, I know I spent years trying to control everything around you. I know I made decisions without asking because I thought I knew better. But I'm learning that love isn't about control. It's about showing up, being present, letting someone else lead when it's their turn to lead. That's very evolved for someone who once hired security for my book club without telling me." In my defense, book club that month was discussing a very controversial political memoir, and I was worried about protests. "It was a book club, Lucas, not a summit." "I see that now." His smile was self-deprecating. "I see a lot of things now that I was too stubborn to see before." Mara sat down on the couch, her hand automatically going to her belly where the baby was doing lazy rolls. "If you're in the delivery room, there are rules. Name them. You follow the nurses' and doctors' instructions without question. You don't try to take over or make executive decisions about my medical care. And if at any point I tell you to leave, you leave. No arguments." "Agreed. And Lucas, I need you to understand that letting you be there for the birth doesn't mean we're getting back together. It doesn't mean I've forgotten everything that went wrong before. It just means I think our daughter deserves to have both her parents there when she enters the world." Lucas sat down beside her, careful to maintain distance. "I know. I'm not asking for more than you're willing to give. I'm just grateful you're willing to give this much." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the magnitude of what they'd just agreed to. Then Mara reached for the ultrasound photos Lucas had set on the coffee table. "She has your chin," Mara said softly. "Look, right here, that's definitely your stubborn jawline. And your nose. That's all you." Lucas traced the image with one finger, his touch reverent. "Do you have names picked out?" "A few, but I wanted to wait until she's here to decide, see what fits." Mara hesitated. "Did you have any thoughts?" "Elena, it was my grandmother's name. She raised me after my parents died, taught me everything I know about loyalty and protection." Lucas's voice carried old grief. "She would have loved you, would have told me I was an idiot for letting you go." "Elena Vale." Mara tested the sound of it. "It's beautiful. What was her middle name?" "Rose. Elena Rose Vale." "Elena Rose." Mara felt the baby kick as if in approval. "I like it, but let's keep options open. She might come out and be completely wrong for Elena." "Fair enough." Lucas's phone buzzed and he checked it with a slight frown. "I'm sorry, I need to take this. It's Dominic." "Go ahead." Lucas stepped into the kitchen for privacy, and Mara could hear the low murmur of his voice, though not the words. When he returned, his expression was troubled. "Problem?" she asked. "Maybe. Dominic says there's been some unusual activity with one of the old accounts. Could be nothing, could be someone testing our security." He ran a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "I'm sorry. I know I said the threats were handled, but in my world there's always something." "Is it dangerous? To me or the baby?" "No, this is business-level security, not personal threat. But I should probably go handle it before it becomes something bigger." Mara nodded, trying not to feel disappointed. This was the reality of Lucas's life. Constant vigilance, endless fires to put out, the weight of an empire that demanded attention even when he was trying to step away from it. "Go," she said. "Do what you need to do." Lucas paused at the door. "Mara? Thank you for letting me come to the appointment, for considering letting me be there for the birth, for giving me chances I probably don't deserve. You're her father. You deserve the chance to be in her life. Whether you stay in it depends on you." After he left, Mara sat in the quiet apartment feeling the weight of decisions made and decisions still to come. She pulled out her phone and called Rachel. "How'd it go?" Rachel answered without preamble. "He's going to be in the delivery room." "Wow, that's big." "I know, I'm either being incredibly mature or incredibly stupid." "Probably both," Rachel said cheerfully. "That's kind of your brand. But seriously, how do you feel about it?" "Terrified. Hopeful. like I'm standing at the edge of something I can't control. Mara pressed her hand against her belly. But I look at these ultrasound photos and I see her face, Rachel. I see the person she's going to be. And I want her to have both her parents there when she takes her first breath. Even if one of those parents comes with a complicated history and a security detail. Even then, because maybe part of being a parent is modeling forgiveness, showing her that people can change if they really want to. That's very zen for someone who filed for divorce 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I didn't know what I know now. I didn't know Lucas was capable of choosing the hard path over the easy one. I didn't know he could dismantle a threat without violence. I didn't know he could respect my boundaries even when it cost him. Rachel was quiet for a moment. You still love him. I never stopped. But love was never our problem. Trust was the problem. And maybe he's finally earning that back. Over the next 3 weeks, Lucas proved himself in small, consistent ways that meant more than grand gestures ever could. He showed up to the childbirth class Mara had enrolled in, sitting through discussions of breathing techniques and pain management without complaint. He attended her next doctor's appointment and asked intelligent questions about fetal positioning and signs of labor. He texted every day to check in, but never pushed for more than she offered. And slowly, carefully, Mara felt the walls she'd built around her heart begin to soften. At 37 weeks, Mara woke at 3 in the morning to a sensation that felt different from the practice contractions she'd been having for days. This was sharper, more insistent, radiating from her back around to her belly in waves that took her breath away. She lay still for 20 minutes, timing the contractions on her phone, before accepting what her body was trying to tell her. This was it. Their daughter was ready to make her entrance. Her hands shook as she called Lucas. He answered on the first ring, his voice alert despite the hour. Mara, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but I think I'm in labor. The pause was so brief she almost missed it. How far apart are the contractions? 6 minutes. They started about half an hour ago. I'm on my way. Don't move. Don't panic. Just breathe like we practiced. Lucas, you don't have to. I'm already in the car. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He made it in 12. Mara heard his footsteps pounding up the stairs before his knock came, urgent but controlled. She opened the door to find him dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, his hair uncombed, his eyes bright with barely contained fear and excitement. Okay, he said, stepping inside and immediately taking stock of the situation with the tactical precision she'd both loved and hated about him. Your hospital bag is packed? You have everything you need? By the door. Rachel's on her way to meet us there. Another contraction hit and Mara gripped the back of the couch, breathing through it while Lucas's hand hovered near her back, wanting to help but not sure how. When it passed, she straightened. Okay, let's do this. The drive to the hospital was surreal. Lucas drove with careful precision, navigating the pre-dawn streets while Mara breathed through contractions that were getting steadily closer together. He'd called ahead, and by the time they arrived, a wheelchair was waiting with a nurse who took one look at Mara and immediately began the process of getting her admitted. The next hours blurred into a haze of medical checks, monitors, and steadily intensifying pain. Rachel arrived and took up position on one side of the bed, while Lucas stood on the other, both of them offering support in their own ways. Doctor Martinez appeared around dawn, cheerful and competent, announcing that Mara was progressing well. You're at 7 centimeters, she said. Won't be much longer now. You're doing great. But as morning stretched into afternoon, complications arose. The baby's heart rate began dropping during contractions, and Dr. Martinez's expression shifted from encouraging to concerned. We need to get her out soon, she said quietly. I'm going to recommend we move to an operating room, just in case we need to do a cesarean. Mara's fear must have shown on her face because Lucas immediately took her hand, his grip firm and steady. Hey, look at me. You're going to be fine. She's going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. You don't know that. No, but I believe it. And right now, that's going to have to be enough for both of us. They moved to the operating room where the bright lights and surgical equipment made everything feel more urgent, more real. Mara was prepped for a possible cesarean while Dr. Martinez made one last check. Actually, we're going to try something first, she said. Mara, I need you to push with the next contraction. Let's see if we can get her to move. What followed was the hardest physical work Mara had ever done. Each contraction felt like her body was being torn apart and rebuilt. And through it all, Lucas stayed beside her, his hand in hers, his voice steady with encouragement even when she could see the fear in his eyes. "You've got this," he kept saying. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." And finally, after what felt like forever but was actually only 20 minutes, Dr. Martinez's face split into a grin. "There's the head. One more push, Mara. One more and you get to meet your daughter." Mara pushed with everything she had left. And then suddenly the pressure released and the room filled with the sound of crying, thin and outraged and absolutely perfect. "It's a girl," Dr. Martinez announced unnecessarily, lifting a tiny, furious, beautiful human into view. "Born at 2:47 in the afternoon. Congratulations, both of you." They placed the baby on Mara's chest, and for a moment the entire world condensed down to this: the weight of her daughter against her heart, the feel of impossibly small fingers wrapping around hers, the sight of dark hair and a scrunched-up face and eyes that were trying so hard to focus. "Hi," Mara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Hi, baby girl. We've been waiting for you." Lucas stood frozen beside the bed, his face wet with tears he wasn't bothering to hide. When Dr. Martinez offered him the scissors to cut the cord, his hands shook so badly that Mara thought he might drop them. But he managed, his expression one of complete awe. "She's perfect," he said, his voice breaking. "Mara, she's absolutely perfect." "Do we have a name?" the nurse asked, preparing the birth certificate paperwork. Mara looked at Lucas, saw the hope in his eyes, and made a decision. "Elena. Elena Rose Vale." Lucas's face crumpled with emotion. "You're sure?" "I'm sure. She looks like an Elena." Mara touched their daughter's tiny hand. "Welcome to the world, Elena Rose. You have no idea how much you're already loved." The next hours passed in a blur of medical checks and visitors. Rachel came in and cried over her new niece. Dominic appeared with an enormous bouquet and suspiciously red eyes. Even Claire stopped by with a card from the building residents that fooled absolutely nobody. But eventually the visitors left and it was just the three of them, Mara, Lucas, and Elena, who was sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet beside the bed. Lucas sat in the chair next to Mara, holding her hand, both of them unable to stop staring at their daughter. "Thank you," Lucas said quietly, "for letting me be here, for giving her my grandmother's name, for giving me another chance." "Thank you for earning it," Mara replied, "for changing, for choosing the hard path, for proving that people really can be better than their past." "What happens now?" Lucas asked. "Where do we go from here?" Mara thought about the question, about the apartment waiting for her and the life she'd built alone, and the man sitting beside her who'd dismantled his empire to deserve a place in his daughter's world. She thought about trust earned in small increments and love that had never really died, and the tiny human who deserved parents who could figure out how to love each other without destroying themselves in the process. "I don't know," she said honestly, "but I think we figure it out together. One day at a time, one decision at a time, with complete honesty and actual communication and a willingness to mess up and try again." "That sounds terrifying." "It is, but so is everything worth doing." Lucas lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. "I love you, Mara. I never stopped. And I know you're not ready to hear that or say it back, and that's okay. I just need you to know it's true." "I love you too," Mara said, surprising herself with the admission. "I'm still figuring out what that means, what it looks like when we're both different people than we were. But I love you, and I love her, and I think maybe that's enough to start with." Elena chose that moment to wake up, her tiny face scrunching in preparation for a cry. Lucas stood immediately, moving to the bassinet. "May I?" he asked. "She's your daughter. You don't have to ask permission." Lucas lifted Elena with the careful precision of someone handling something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. He settled back into the chair with her cradled against his chest, his large hand supporting her tiny body, and the sight of it made Mara's heart do something complicated in her chest. "Hi, Elena Rose," Lucas whispered. "I'm your dad, and I know I'm going to mess this up sometimes. I know I'm going to be overprotective and probably embarrassing, and I'll want to solve all your problems, even when you need to solve them yourself. But I promise you this, I will always show up. I will always choose the hard right over the easy wrong. And I will spend every day of my life trying to be worthy of being your father." Elena blinked up at him with unfocused eyes, her tiny hand finding his finger and gripping it with surprising strength. And in that moment, Mara saw the future stretching ahead of them, messy and complicated and full of the kind of challenges that couldn't be solved with money or power or any of Lucas's usual tools, but also full of love, full of second chances, full of the possibility that two people who'd hurt each other could learn to love better, smarter, with eyes wide open to their own flaws and forgiveness for each other's mistakes. 3 months later, Mara stood in her apartment, the same apartment she'd moved to when she'd left Lucas, though it felt different now, full of baby equipment and the constant low-level chaos of new parenthood, and watched Lucas change Elena's diaper with the focused concentration of someone defusing a bomb. "You know you don't have to be quite that careful," she said, amused. "She's not going to explode." "She might. She's unpredictable." Lucas finished fastening the diaper and lifted Elena to his shoulder, patting her back gently. "Besides, I've read that proper diaper changing is crucial for infant comfort and development." "You've read too many parenting books." "Is there such a thing as too many parenting books?" Mara crossed the room and wrapped her arms around both of them, breathing in the scent of baby powder and Lucas's familiar cologne and the home they were slowly, carefully building together. "Probably not. But Lucas, you're doing great. You don't have to be perfect." "I'm trying to make up for lost time." "You're not making up for anything. You're just being present. That's all she needs." Lucas turned to kiss Mara's forehead, careful not to jostle Elena. "What about what you need?" It was a question he'd been asking more often lately, learning to check in instead of assume, to ask instead of decide. And Mara loved him for it. "I need exactly what I have," she said. "A healthy daughter, a partner who shows up, and a future that doesn't scare me anymore." "Does this mean you'll consider moving in together?" "Nothing fancy, just a place with enough room for all of us. Maybe a yard for when Elena starts walking." Mara had been expecting this conversation, had been preparing her response for weeks, but standing here with Lucas and their daughter, feeling the solid reality of the family they'd built from the wreckage of their past, the answer was easier than she'd expected. "Ask me again in 6 months," she said. "Let's make sure we can do this without killing each other first. But Lucas, I'm not saying no. I'm just saying not yet. I can work with not yet." Lucas smiled, and it was the smile she'd fallen in love with years ago, before the empire and the danger and the distance that had nearly destroyed them both. "Not yet implies eventually, and eventually is more than I thought I'd get." Elena made a small sound of contentment, and they both looked down at her, this tiny person who'd brought them back together and forced them to be better than they'd been. In her sleeping face, Mara could see the future. First steps and first words, school plays and teenage rebellion, all the beautiful, complicated moments of watching someone grow, and she could see Lucas beside her for all of it. Not perfect, not without challenges, but present and trying and choosing every day to be the father their daughter deserved and the partner Mara needed. The past would always be there, full of mistakes and pain and lessons learned the hard way. But the future was unwritten, full of possibility, waiting for them to shape it into something better than what they'd lost. Together, with eyes open and hearts willing to risk everything for the chance at getting it right. For Elena, for each other, for the family they were learning to be. One honest conversation at a time, one choice at a time, one day at a time, until eventually became now, and the distance between who they'd been and who they were becoming closed for good, leaving only love in its place. The kind of love that survives darkness because it chooses light. The kind of love that grows stronger in breaking because it learns how to heal. The kind of love that their daughter would grow up seeing, learning from, using as the foundation for her own future. And that, Mara thought, as she stood in Lucas's arms with their daughter between them, was worth every scar they'd earned along the way. Worth the pain of walking away. Worth the courage of coming back. Worth everything.